The New England Football Show presented by Mortgage Right. I'm your host, John Sarianides, and I'm joined by my partner, Kevin Stone, as always. Kevin, how are you this evening?
Doing good, man. Busy. How are you?
Good, good. But busy is an appropriate term, and it's June. We're not supposed to be busy, but between the Patriots and OTAs and all the camps that are going on right now, busy is an apropos word. Now, before we get started here, we got a lot of Patriots to talk tonight with OTA practice today. Several of the coaches spoke. David Andrews, of course, had his retirement announcement. Before we get into all that, as well as yesterday's mega camp at Boston College, I do want to remind you that we are brought to you by Mortgage Right. If you're in the market to sell your current home, purchase your next home, purchase your first home, or refinance, and you need to give Herb Devine a call. 781-254-2846, or shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. With over 27 years of experience, Herb has the knowledge and the know-how to guide you through this process. We're into June now. The spring real estate market is starting to slow down, but the real estate market never slows down. It's going to be strong going into the summer. If you're thinking about entering the market, you need someone like Herb Devine in your corner. Again, give him a call at 781-254-2846, or shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. He and his team are available anytime, including nights and weekends. All right, Stone, of course, right out of the gate, you're complaining about being busy. I mean, again, I don't know if being out there on a glorious day like today covering the Patriots is busy, but I guess we'll call it busy. But nonetheless, jam-packed day up at Gillette Stadium today between OTAs, David Andrews' retirement. Of course, the big story of the day was Stefon Diggs. He's in town. He participated today. You also had several of the coaches met with the media, specifically Josh McDaniels and Doug Marrone. Let's just take one thing at a time here. Let's start with OTA practice. Just some initial impressions, and then I want to get into Diggs.
Well, for starters, I wasn't complaining. It was beautiful today.
No, you were complaining. You're a master complainer.
Well, thank you. So,
You
look,
mastered the art.
Diggs is obviously the biggest story, and we always preface everything this time of year with, look, it's May and June, but man, he looked good. And I found it interesting. No knee brace either. Now he wasn't doing, quote unquote full speed. Nothing is full speed this time of year, but so he did the walkthrough stuff. He wasn't in full team periods, but look, every single drill in Indy period, he was out there. Him and Keyshawn Booty was starting every drill, and he looked good. Obviously, I posted videos and everybody else did as well. He was cutting well. He was running hard. He looked good. He looked like the guy you hoped you're getting. So if that's the Diggs we're going to get all season long, drama aside, you're going to get what you paid for. So he was rightfully the biggest story of the day, not just because he was there, but because he looked like a number one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, I think we're living in a time now where these knee injuries, they're not as serious as they used to be. If it's your standard torn ACL, if you rehab the right way and you attack it early and you have the surgery early in the process, you can really cut into that rehab time and you could really be back doing football activities around 9 months, which is what it is for Diggs now, give or take. So I think it's great to hear that he's running around, he's making catches, he's cutting, he's getting in and out of cuts, he's doing all of these football things in June, and he's ahead of schedule. That's the important thing here. Remember now, when they signed him, there was some talk as to whether or not he would be ready for the regular season. Based on what you're saying and what we saw today, he's going to be ready for the regular season. I would think he plays week 1.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's ahead of schedule. The knee brace thing is interesting, although the one thing to keep in mind is that knee braces with receivers, it depends on the severity of the ACL. If it was a clean tear and they rehabbed right, they may not need it. If there were some complications with the procedure, if it wasn't a full tear and the rehab approach is different, they might need to wear some kind of a knee brace now in this phase of their recovery. But as you go into the season, typically with receivers in particular, defensive backs, you don't want them wearing those bulky knee braces because it's going to affect their ability to plant, drive, stick their foot in the ground and cut. So I think it's great that he looked as good as he did today. I think it's a positive sign. It would be nice to put last week's bullshit behind us. I think if we can do that and stop speculating what he was passing out and who he was on the boat with, I think that would be fantastic. Because, again, to your point, if this dude's fully healthy, you're getting a number one receiver.
Yeah, the other thing that stood out, and you don't have any real, tangible evidence necessarily, but I thought he just sort of ratcheted up things for the rest of the receiver group. It was more vocal, during indie period. During team drills, guys were making plays. Again, we've only seen 3 practices, but it was by far the best day for the receivers and the offense as a whole. So I think just him being around is huge for that young receiver room. You could definitely tell there's an aura when he's out there.
Yeah, look, let's face it, and we've talked about this ad nauseum since they signed him. They haven't had that guy around here since Julian Edelman. They haven't had a guy at that position, whether it be the Z or the F, that resembles a number one receiver since 2018. So I think, again, to your point, he's an all-pro, Pro Bowl caliber player. He's going to come in. He's going to lead the room. He's going to lead the room in the room during installation. He's going to lead the room on the field. And I think that's what you saw today. And again, we know what Stefon Diggs can do. We know what he can be if his head is on straight and he's healthy. He's a top 10 receiver in this league now. You go back a couple years ago, he's a top 5 receiver. So you're still getting a guy that when he's healthy and playing at a high level is top 10 at the position. The Patriots haven't sniffed top 10 at that position, whether it be the Z, the F, or the X in the last 6 years. So to have a guy here with his resume, his cachet, that's a pro's pro when he's in the building is huge for the young receivers in the room. It's going to help the Kayshon Bouttys. It's going to help the Pop Douglas and the Javon Bakers and the Kyle Williams and the Jalen Polks. All of those guys are going to benefit from being around this dude, picking his brain, not about off the field activities, but picking his brain about what makes him the type of player that he is. What's his routine like? They're going to see his routine in action. What's his routine like? His preparation. One thing you could say about Stefon Diggs, anybody that played with him in Minnesota and Buffalo would tell you, he was always one of the hardest working guys in the building. No one is ever going to question the dude's work ethic. He brings it 12 months out of the year when it comes to being a football player in the facility and on the field. So aside from the fact that he gives you a receiver who resembles a number one receiver, we've talked about this now for 3 months. He's also going to give you that leadership piece that you were missing. You saw it especially in the last 2 years covering this football team, Kevin. They didn't have that guy. And you needed that guy not only on the field, but at times when those young receivers were pouting and moaning last year, you could have used that veteran receiver that could have walked in the room the Monday after a game and said, hey, everybody shut the F up. This is what we're doing. This is how we're going to go about it. Follow me. I'm going to lead the way. They haven't had that guy. They need it. Again, this is where Stefon Diggs, as long as he's in the clear with this off the field stuff, this is where he's going to pay immense dividends for this football team.
Yeah, I mean, Kendrick Bourne, to his credit, tried last season.
Yeah,
but
let's not forget about him. And I'm glad you brought him up. To your point, he's tried to be that guy since he got here in 2021. Unfortunately, with the injuries and the inconsistency with the play caller and the scheme, he hasn't been able to become that guy.
No, and I think the first day of OTAs, maybe, when he talked, he said, look, I was dealing with trying to rehab, and trying to come back and be the player I was. So he was trying to do, 5 different things at once, and ultimately nothing got done, really. So, again, to his credit, he tried, but no, Diggs changes everything about that room if he's there and he's healthy and like you said, being a pro day in and day out.
Yeah, of course, we have to be on the Drake May watch. The last time the media was in an OTA, it was the end of the world. Drake May threw 4 interceptions at an OTA practice. Everybody went berserk. They started losing their minds. They acted like it was the biggest of deals. It's not. He looked much better today. Josh Dobbs looked pretty good today. Overall, the quarterbacks looked pretty good as a whole, although Woolridge, I guess, if you want to throw him into the mix, I think he went, 4 of 8, I think. But overall, much better today from Drake May and the quarterbacks. Everybody in the media around here seems to be happy from what they saw today. Of course, they charted his throws. What did he finish? 14 out of 16, I think. It seems like everybody is feeling much better today than they were a week ago about Drake May's status.
So I'm not a big charter in June, but he
Yeah, I'm not a
was
big charter of practice
ever.
throws any time of the year. But anyway,
He was 9 for 9 at one point after a would-be sack and a throwaway. So I thought that was, pretty important to string stuff together this time of year. That's worthwhile. But I go back to the receivers today. They made him look good. Now, don't get me wrong. He had 3 absolute, drops in the bucket. One of them I think you've probably heard and read about by now. A throw to Ramondre Stevenson down the left sideline. Just couldn't place it any better. 40 yards or so downfield, drop in the bucket. And another couple nice throws to Pop Douglas and Keyshawn Boutte. So guys are making plays, but he looked more accurate. He also had more time to throw today. And again, I know there's not in pads and you can't really, gauge a pass rush or anything, but there were times when we've been there when he's been rushed. And I think that's why he didn't look that good. But yeah, he looked fine today, and he's making throws that you hope a face of the franchise makes.
yeah, well, and especially this time of year, right? I mean,
Yeah, against him.
this is a time of the year, new system or not, where your quarterback has to start to get into a rhythm because the base install is in. You've put that in. You're repping it now. This is a time of year where he should be comfortable. Once that install ramps up, once more plays are installed, one plays, pass plays, more concepts in the play action game, screen game. Once all of those things start to ramp up, and that'll be fall camp. But once we get into fall camp, week 1, week 2, and McDaniel starts to ramp up the install, then that's really when we need to judge him. Right now, we're judging him based on base offense, base run game, base pass plays. There's probably some new stuff in there. McDaniel's talked about that today, how they're blending some stuff conceptually in terms of ideas. But overall, again, it's hard to judge him this time of year. Now, next week, when you're in mini camp, I think that's going to be more of an opportunity to judge him than this week. But again, we don't want to make too much of it. And I'm not making excuses for the kid, okay? But we need to keep in mind, it's his second year in the league. It's his first year in this offense. The Patriot offensive coordinator position has been a shit show now for 4 years. They've had 4 different coordinators in 4 years. This kid needs stability. And this is why, with all due respect to McDaniels, and we're going to get to him here in a sec, I don't ever want to see him sniff a head job again. I want to see him spend the rest of his coaching career here so that Drake May gets some stability, the Patriots can get on some good footing, and that offense can get back on track because it's been a damn dumpster fire in the last 4 years. So it's going to be good for the kid. I think we cannot, and again, I'm not trying to make excuses for him or protect him because I like him. I think there's a lot of fake hate for Drake May out there, both in terms of members of the media, some of the fans, and people I talk to. I mean, some people I talk to that I know privately bitch and moan about May and act like they don't like him. It's like, just stop. Stop. You don't even know who the hell he was up until 2 years ago, so just stop. All that being said, I think, again, to my point earlier about it being too soon to judge him, today was a positive step. Next week, we judge him a little bit more. Fall camp, and you and I talked about this today when I saw you, that's when you really want to start judging him. That's when we really want to start charting throws, how he did, how he didn't do. Did he add and subtract on some of the passes? What's his accuracy look like? How did he look throwing the ball out of the pocket, whether it's by design or because he was rushed? That's when we can start judging him. But to judge him now in May and June, it's idiotic.
No, I think the only reason we really should have is if it continued to look like that first day. Like if he was throwing 4 picks every time we were there, then I'd be concerned a little bit.
Yeah, but would you be concerned enough that he wouldn't be your quarterback this fall?
Of course not, but I think
right.
it would be
okay. So
I think it would be talked about.
I'm not saying
more.
You shouldn't. And by the way, I'm not saying you shouldn't be concerned. I mean, if he went out there today and threw 4 more picks, I get why you would be concerned. But I don't think there's anything. Is my point.
No, of course. But I do think if it had continued to look bad and he was taking steps back, well, then it might be becoming more of a thing that you need to watch. And to your point, Vrabel even said, he was asked one time, yes, we care about the 4 picks, but not to the extent that we're going to panic. So it's nice to see that he's learned from his mistakes and that's another thing Josh talked about today, is that he's not a repeat offender either.
All right, we're going to treat this like the McLaughlin Group now, a show that was way before your time. But I'm going to just rapid fire ask you your thoughts real quick on what three of the coaches had to say, and then what some of the players had to say. So I'm going to give you the Jack Jarmundo treatment. All right, here we go. Stono. Zach Zer, one thing that stood out to you that he said today.
He really emphasized just sort of being an extension of Terrell Williams and Mike Vrabel. And we've talked about the continuity and how important it is. But look, if the message is still getting across and guys know who it's coming from, and there's not a question of who's the leader, and you can speak to this as someone who's been on a staff, as long as guys know who the message is really coming from, I think that's all that matters, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. 100%. Doug Marone, you were able to talk to Coach Marone. You asked him a couple questions today. Thoughts on one thing, I should say thoughts. One thing that Coach Marone said today that stood out to you.
He's fine with Will Campbell. He was asked about the arm length again, and if it's a problem, he denied it, obviously. We've talked about this. I don't think it matters at this point. He made the NFL.
I don't know why the hell we're still talking about arm length. I mean, we're not in pads. Put the pads on. See how he does in one-on-one. See how he does in team periods. And then maybe if he struggles, we could start to bemoan the arm length thing again. But the fact that it's brought up again, it's like, seriously, man. Honestly, it's whatever. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to me. Can we not have that conversation until the kid puts the pads on and we can actually see him in a legitimate one-on-one situation? Anyway, continue.
No, I agree, because we haven't seen anything to give concern. He's been fine. I did ask him about just sort of coming back to the NFL after spending a year in college. He said, "Look, I just want to teach guys," and we talked about this yesterday when we were together. Coaches want to coach, and he wanted,
especially offensive line coaches.
Yeah.
They love being teachers.
Yep.
You know, you and I, we'll talk about in a few minutes, had a chance to catch up with Matt Applebaum yesterday when we were at BC. First of all, one of the best dudes you'll ever meet. Second of all, here's your obligatory Matt Applebaum reference for the show. We told Coach Applebaum that he probably gets referenced every week. You were going to get it in. I beat you to it. But my point is, offensive line coaches fancy themselves more as teachers than any other position coach on a football staff, because there's so much that goes into coaching an offensive line. There's so much fundamental difference between a tackle and a guard and a center. You got to teach run blocking schemes. You got to teach pass blocking schemes. You got to teach so much. You got to be on the same page with the quarterback. You got to teach line calls. You got to teach adjustments. You got to teach how to block everything up against fronts, multiple pressures. They've got to know how to recognize coverage, especially how many safeties there are high. So you really, truly are a teacher. Not that you're not in these other positions, because obviously you are. But I think offensive line coaches are next level teachers.
Yeah, and to that point, I asked Michael Onwenu with an assist from Dan Roach, because I'm too short. He just couldn't hear me. But I asked Onwenu about.
Could he see you at least?
Yes, barely though.
Okay.
Well,
why couldn't he hear you? There was no fans there. It's like a training camp practice.
Well, so
what, were you whispering Victoria's Secret to him? Why couldn't he hear you?
Not to get too inside here, but you know how the podiums are set up. I was in the very back, so I was basically behind that board. So it's
usually where Reese and Capello are hanging.
Yes, exactly.
In the back there, yeah.
But yeah,
and Rochi likes to hang back there too.
And he helped me out. But I asked somebody just about Doug Marone and what it's been like, and he actually talked about the fact that there's 3 guys in that room. And I thought the most interesting thing he said was, we're running stuff down on a sheet, making sure we're seeing and talking about the same things. How bad has the continuity been for years up front? Yeah. Now, that's injuries. That's a lot of injuries, but I thought that was important for him to talk about. And Marone is making sure everyone's speaking the same language, which is huge.
Huge. Yeah. I mean, look, one of the things you have to do pretty early on, and I've been an offensive line coach, one of the things you have to do pretty early on is develop cohesion. Get guys on the same page. Get guys to buy in. Get them to understand in terms of what you're looking for, but also get them to understand what the scheme entails, both in terms of the run game and the pass game. But getting them on the same page along those lines is huge. Clearly, Marone's been around for a long time. He knows the deal. He's been in the NFL for a long time. That's going to come easy to him. He's also a guy that's had local ties, coached at Northeastern way back when, of course, as you mentioned, Kevin. He was at Boston College last year with Coach O'Brien. So he knows the area. He knows the Patriots. He knows he coached against him in an AFC title game when he was the head coach of the Jaguars. So he knows he knows what he's getting into here and what the expectations are. But developing that cohesion, getting these guys on the same page, I think that's huge. Finally, 3 things. Now, we're going to up the ante here, Stone, for you, and I know how you are with remembering things. Okay, so a lot of pressure on you here. 3 things that stuck out to you that Josh McDaniels talked about.
First and foremost, talking about adding plays in today. And I think that might have been why the offense looks so good. I know you won 3, but I want to ask you about that first. This time of year, adding stuff in, and he also said, some stuff he's getting comfortable with in terms of, wanting to do it. As an OC, have you ever installed something that you were reluctant about? Because I found that interesting.
Oh, shit, yeah. You do that every week.
Okay.
You do that every week, whether it be your base install at the start of camp, you expand your base install, you finish your entire install by the end of camp. But you do that every week. On a week-to-week basis, I would install stuff. I would draw something up, or one of the other coaches would come up with something. We'd talk about it Sunday. We'd go back and forth. We'd play around with it. Come Monday, when we're installing on the field, we'd put it in. If it looks like shit, you're taking it out. You're not going into Tuesday's practice with it. And I know some people will say, isn't that a bit much? Shouldn't you at least give it a day? Sometimes we would. If it's something that we really liked and there was a certain level of conviction about the play, we might take that play or plays into Tuesday's practice, run them. But if they don't look good on Monday, they don't look good on Tuesday, they're out. They're not in the game plan. We're not going to rep them on Wednesday when we're really heavy situations, and we're certainly not going to rep them on a Thursday. We're in walkthrough situations ahead of a Friday night game. So absolutely. And they're gonna can a lot of stuff. They're going to can a lot of stuff between now, fall camp, preseason, start of the regular season. I bet you there's probably going to be 50 to 100 plays that they're probably going to install, rep, not like, and either table them, meaning they're not going to can them and get rid of them, or can them and get rid of them. It's just the way it works. I mean, this is, and by the way, this happens throughout the season, because when you initially design a play and you draw it, or when one of your position coaches initially designs a play and draws it up, it may look good. Hey, everybody's undefeated on paper, by the way. We all have 1,000 winning percentage on paper. But the problem is, just because it looks good on paper, just because it looks good on the dry erase board, it's really all about the execution from the human beings, the players, that makes the play work. If that's not there, scrap it. It's got to be out. I'm sure they've already scrapped stuff.
So I'm glad I asked, because I found that interesting. I would have thought, game week or even training camp, I get that. You're going to throw a bunch of crap against the wall and see what sticks. But I just sort of assumed this time of year you would get your, go ahead.
What I was going to say is, I think part of the reason you rep it this time of year is because you want to see if you can carry it over to fall camp, because it's almost like an audition for the play. If you run the play, it looks okay, it doesn't look great. You play around with the personnel grouping, you play around with the formation, you play around with who it's designed to go to. Once you get through those 3 steps, though, then it's okay. It doesn't look good after those 3 steps. Do we want to go into fall camp running and repping this play? Or are we better off running and repping other plays that may be more advantageous for us and could be better for our personnel and who we have schematically? So I think part of the reason you do it this time of the year, Kevin, is you want to see if these are plays you can take into fall camp and continue to rep and eventually run either in the preseason or during the regular season.
No, it completely makes sense. And honestly, it makes me feel more confident with Josh now, because you got to assume he's got, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of plays either in his head and
there's a lot of on that side of the ball.
Yeah.
And I'd even throw Ben McAdoo into this. There's a lot of experience. There's going to be a lot of guys that are going to be competing to be the last man standing with the marker. There's just a lot of ideas there, and that can get complicated when you have that much experience on a staff. You've got to be careful there, because to your point about having thousands of plays, I mean, look, the possibilities are endless in football. I've coached lacrosse, I've coached basketball, I've coached these other sports. I mean, there comes a point where you're like, all right, yeah, we're running the same shit. The beauty of football is, and it's why it's the greatest coaches sport of all time, is the possibilities are endless. We're not running pick and rolls all day. I mean, there's a lot you can do in football that it's infinite. So, but going back to my original point and to your question, that's something McDaniels is going to have to manage because there's going to be a lot of ideas in those meetings, and parsing through those ideas and running what's best for the team is going to be vitally important.
Well, if it's functional, he gets the last call, no?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was
Yeah,
gonna
he's
say.
the OC.
Two other things real quick that you wanted, the three. One, and I know this will warm your heart. He said, the one of talk about there being too much stuff on a quarterback's plate in this offense is overblown. I found that interesting as well because we hadn't really heard that yet. And more than anybody, it's always a talking point. So, look, if Drake May can handle everything, and he's not Tom Brady, don't get me wrong, but handle everything that Brady did at the line of scrimmage, I think they're golden on offense. And then the third thing, he was asked about.
And I just real quick, I want to add to what Josh said. I don't care what level of football it is. If your quarterback cannot absorb and process information and cannot execute the play and cannot execute the offense, he shouldn't be your quarterback. I don't care if you're running the wing tee and running the old 6 good plays, or if you're running a multiple NFL offense like McDaniels is going to run. The bottom line is your quarterback has to know the offense. Your quarterback has to be on the same page as the play caller when it comes to the terminology, the personnel, where everybody lines up, where everybody goes. He has final say at the line of scrimmage. And so I've never been a believer that you shouldn't put too much on your quarterback's plate. Screw that. Your quarterback is going through a buffet line. You're going to keep putting stuff on his plate. That's the bottom line. And as the season goes on, you keep putting more on his plate. And guess what? The stuff that he's already digested and regurgitated, he's got to keep doing that with new material. Because at the end of the day, he is an extension of the offensive coordinator. He is an extension of the play caller. So I couldn't agree more with Josh on that. I mean, at the end of the day, in my opinion, you can never, ever put enough on your quarterback's plate. He's got to be able to handle it all.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the last thing, before we saw Diggs, he was asked about Diggs and said, look, whenever he's been here, he's been good. So, and we saw it today. So, overall, he seems very happy.
Sounds like he digs what Stefon brings to the table.
Yes. But boy, he just, I know
it
it's
was a stupid ass joke. I had to slide it in there.
We do it for 1 or 2 a show at least. So, but more than anything, and again, it's only June. Shit hasn't hit the fan yet. He looks
We've
comfortable.
been using that word a lot tonight, by the way.
Yeah, he looks comfortable.
Maybe we should switch to crap. It is technically. Sure. I mean, it's 8:38. It's still family show hour.
Sure, I think you threw 1 or 2 in there too, but
I did.
He looks and sounds comfortable. I'd rather.
He looks like he's down a few pounds too. I saw something that he's been playing a lot of squash.
Oh, I didn't see that. Is he?
I guess, yeah. That's what he's attributing to his svelter look.
But more than anything, I think him being back is just so big for the entire offense, especially Drake. I know people are like, why are you using a retread and, let's get some new voices in there. This guy knows what the hell he's doing. And you can see and hear it just by the way he talks, the way he carries himself. I think he's going to be phenomenal for Drake in this offense.
And I just think one of the other takes that I've heard out there, the anti-McDaniels take, is that what has he done without Tom Brady and Bill Belichick? Okay, great. Okay,
Mac Jones is a playoff quarterback.
Right, exactly. We know what he's done. I'll tell you this much: we know what he's done without Tom Brady because we know what he did with Matt Castle, and we know what he did with Mac Jones. And he won 11 games with Matt Castle, and they won 10 games and went to the playoffs with Mac Jones his rookie year. So I'm not worried about him as an offensive coordinator. I love that they brought him back. They're going to bring back a lot of elements of that old system. They're obviously going to infuse this version of the offense with a lot of Thomas Brown's ideas and Marone's ideas and Tony Dude's ideas and Todd Downing's ideas. There's going to be a lot of ideas that are going to go into this. It's not going to be what they ran under Brady. It's going to be an expanded version of that. All of that being said, who the hell did you want them to hire? And I'm sorry. I like the Thomas Brown hire. Don't get me wrong. I love that he's going to bring a lot of those McVay modern West Coast offense ideas into this system. And I love that offense. But at the end of the day, the Patriots can't afford to sit in 11 personnel. You got to remember, it's easy to sit in 11 personnel when you're playing in Los Angeles and playing in an indoor facility. Okay? Here, you got to be able to get into 11, 12, 13, 21, 22. Because when you get into November and December, you got to be able to run the football and you got to be able to set a physical tone. You got to be able to control the line of scrimmage. And I hate to say it, you got to be able to play with two backs. And so that's what he's going to bring to the table. I love this hire. Now, could it not work out? Yeah. I mean, nothing's guaranteed in life. But I think at the end of the day, Patriot fans should be ecstatic about Josh McDaniels being back. You know what you're getting in this guy.
100%. And again, just you listen to him talk, and he's so knowledgeable. Granted, a lot of that comes from spending 20 years with Bill Belichick. But if you have brought in someone new, I don't necessarily trust that he'd be able to get on the same page with Drake May.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And again, who are you going to bring in? I know everybody was clamoring for Nick Caley. Well, guess what Nick Caley was going to run? This system with what he picked up from McVay in Los Angeles. That's what he's going to run in Houston. So can we stop pretending like Nick Caley would have been someone else? At the end of the day, they need to get back to their multiple roots. They need to get back to being a game plan specific offense. They need to be able to go into games and do what they did in that playoff run in 2014, where they are just out coaching people left and right, thinking back to that divisional round playoff game against Baltimore with the double pass from Edelman to Amendola. They need to get back to that. That was all Josh McDaniels, okay? That was not all of these other desired candidates that people wanted out there. And at the end of the day, here's the thing with the modern West Coast offense. We have enough of a sample size around the league now that we know how those Shanahan-McVay guys do when they leave Shanahan and McVay. And it's very, very It's very 500-ish. They're not having that much success. I mean, you look at last season, Dan Quinn hires Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury's an air raid guy. He's an old Mike Leach disciple. He played for Mike Leach at Texas Tech. He, like when Chip Kelly came into the NFL, he's brought that air raid offense to the NFL. But what he's done is he's added NFL concepts to it. And that's why he's been one hell of an offensive coordinator. And that's why Jaden Daniels had an unbelievable rookie season. The guy's a damn good offensive coach. But at the end of the day, a lot of these cookie-cutter modern West Coast offense guys, we know what they're going to run. We know what they're going to bring to the table. No disrespect to Coach Brown, but had they hired him, would have been a lot of what you saw last year with Van Pelt. It's the same system, but except they probably would have been in 11 personnel a little more. So I love that they brought back McDaniels. I love what he brings to the table. I think that the offense is going to be just fine. Couple of things here before we move on to Boston College and talking mega camp. Of course, David Andrews officially announced his retirement today with a press conference this afternoon. It took place at 3:30 at the atrium there at Gillette Stadium. Obviously, again, bittersweet, played for the Patriots for 10 years. One of the more unheralded guys when you think about not only the second half of the dynasty, but really these last few years. One of the more unheralded guys. You want to talk about a guy who had a workman-like attitude, came to work every day, chased perfection, wanted to be great, cared, was a great teammate, great with the media. Like, I'm bummed out that I couldn't go today. My plan was to go, but I wanted to go, and I wanted to congratulate him and thank him because, I mean, you and I can both attest to this. And I mean, certainly Karen Garigian and Mike Reese and Chris and Tom Curran, those guys covered him longer than we did. But, you know, what I think for me, when I walk away from when I think of David Andrews and his career in New England is his professionalism. Win, lose, or draw, he's going to meet with the media. He's gonna take time. I mean, oftentimes he'd come out to the podium in his pants. They just broke out of the locker room after the game, after a lot of those tough losses, he would walk into the media room in his pads and talk to us. He was always the same way after a practice. If he was at his locker by himself and you needed to, see if you can talk to him and try to get something out of him, he always gave you his time. So I'm bummed out that I didn't get to go today, Kevin, because I felt that he was a pro's pro in a lot of ways, especially when it came to dealing with us.
Yeah, to that point, I was lucky enough to do that today. And I was kind of going back and forth because we've only covered him, 3 years, I think. So I didn't know if it was right for me to go up to him. Said screw it at the end of the day. I just walked up, said, thank you for being so welcoming. Again, I've been doing this for a long time, but going into that locker room for the first few years, it's intimidating if
It
you've
is.
never done it before.
It's nothing. It's nothing like walking into a high school or even college locker room.
No.
The NFL is a different deal.
No. So I had been doing it for 15 years before I started covering the team. He was one of the guys that whatever you needed, no matter what, more than welcoming. So I was glad I got to thank him for that. He dapped up every media guy that came up to him, old woman, and gave him a hug. So that was a great moment today. But it's funny, on the way down, driving down this morning, I was thinking he might be the most underrated Patriot of the entire dynasty. And I know he was only there for the back half, but man, when you think Patriots, you think David Andrews. Like, to me, he is the Pat Patriot logo, the old throwback one. And not just because it's a center, it's just who I think of.
Yeah.
Like that type of Patriot, like him and Logan Mankins are the two guys I think of when you see that old logo. But so this one hit me a lot more today, again, because I was a fan watching him win those titles first before I became a team. So watching him get as emotional as he did today, and it was emotional in there, it hit me. So I was glad I got to be there for that. And I was also talking to our good friends, Brian Hines, Alex Barth.
No. Not our good friends.
Sure.
Your good friends.
And Taylor Kyles. And we were trying to think.
I'm sick of Kyle's always wanting to talk O-line play too. I mean, who the hell does he think I am, Doug Marone?
Well, as a quick side topic, we're almost at the 1-year anniversary of you and him on video at Brady Night for the first time. So that's
people don't need to see that again.
But no,
they don't need to see it again for 1 and 2. I don't need people comparing me to Chris Christie. I'm over that.
Well, you should hear what I hear when we stand side by side.
That we look like a bar graph.
It's that I've heard worse, but yeah, but no, we were trying to see, talk. When did they give out 87? When do they give out 60? There's always a gap there. Like Kyle Williams has 18 now, but I don't think it was given out for a year or two after Matt Slater retired. So I wonder if this is a number that you maybe don't see for a while. In my heart, Brady's number and 87 should be retired for Gronk and Ben Coates. But in terms of retired numbers, Andrews should have an argument. I don't think it'll ever happen, but that's the type of player he was. So emotional day. A couple of things I found interesting real quick too, and you'll love this. He said if you're a parent on the fence about your kid playing football, you won't regret it. I thought that was a key piece that he said, and he said he didn't want to play anywhere else. He wasn't healthy, and he only wanted to wear, a Patriot uniform. So he is a Patriot through and through, and he should always be remembered as sort of a glue core guy that gave everything he had.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? You think about Julian Edelman, you think about Matthew Slater, you think about even Gerard Mayo, you think about David Andrews. And these guys are all Patriots. They play their entire careers here, and there's something to be said for it. And again, I'm gonna bring up something that is probably tiresome to people, but this is still what chaps me about Tom Brady. Tom Brady should have never played in Tampa. He should have finished his career here. He did enough that he should have gone out on his terms as a Patriot. He should have been rewarded for his loyalty to the organization, for taking less money through the years. They should have rewarded him on the back end of his career, and Kraft and Belichick should have done whatever they can do to keep him here. And the fact that we'll never be able to say that he finished his entire career here, the fact that we had to sit through him winning a Super Bowl in Tampa of all places, great place to visit. I love Florida. I love Tampa. But the Buccaneers, and I went to their training camp last year because when I'm away in the summer, I like to go to training camps because what the hell else am I going to do? But it's Tampa. Okay, what Brady did here in comparison to what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are is night and day. So the fact that he went down there and won a 7th Super Bowl with them chaps you. So it's nice to see these guys, like I said, whether it be an Edelman, a Slater, an Andrews today, it's nice to see these guys retiring as Patriots. It's the way it should be. And look, as sports fans, we always hope and want that for our heroes, right? Like my favorite basketball player of all time is Larry Bird. He played his whole career as a Celtic, retired as a Celtic. My favorite hockey player of all time is Patrick Waugh. I had to watch him get shelled in 1995 in a game, get left in there. He flips out, and then the next day he's traded to the Colorado Avalanche. And that, as a young sports fan, I was 20 at the time, that breaks your heart. I mean, I was devastated when they traded him to Colorado. So it's nice to see guys like Andrews finish their careers here. It's nice to see that the player values that too. Because as you know nowadays, I don't care what the sport is, players don't value playing in one city anymore. They don't value playing in one market anymore. They chase the money, right, wrong, or indifferent. And I don't blame them necessarily, but they chase their next contract. And if their next contract is not where they got their first or second contract, then they have no problem going to find the third contract somewhere else. I'm glad that David Andrews retired a Patriot.
100% agree. And if we're doing that whole thing, Pedro, Clemens, and Mo Vaughn should have all retired Red Sox. But the other thing that stood out today, too, the amount of current players that were there, I thought that was telling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I think it speaks to the level of respect for Andrews, both within the organization and in the locker room. I mean, again, and ask any of his teammates, they will tell you in many ways, and you can say this about Matthew Slater as well. I mean, they were the ultimate teammate because they were professional, they were real, they led by example. They didn't just talk the talk, they walked the walk. They were the real deal. And again, in our short time in dealing with the two of them, they were the two best guys in many ways to deal with, along with Jonathan Jones, Dietrich Wise. Those guys were fantastic. Of course, they're both in Washington now playing for the Commanders. But, I mean, again, it says a lot about David Andrews, the person, his upbringing, his background. But it also says a lot about the culture here that was established when the Patriots were winning. That a guy like that, who was an undrafted free agent, can make this team start at center for them for 10 seasons, be a Pro Bowler, and win 2 Super Bowls. I mean, it's amazing. And I think, again, it says a lot about the organization and the structure that was in place here. But as I said, it also says a lot about David Andrews as a person. You are watching / listening to the New England Football Show presented by Mortgage Right. I'm your host, John Sarianides. As always, I'm joined by Kevin Stone. And I do want to remind you that if you're in the market to sell your current home, purchase your next home, purchase your first home, or refinance, make sure you give our good friend Herb Devine a call, 781-254-2846. You can also shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. He and his team are available anytime, including nights and weekends. And again, the real estate market is cooking right now. There's more inventory out there. There's more of an opportunity. Rates have come down, not a lot, but they've come down enough. If you're ready to enter the market, you need someone like Herb in your corner. Give him a call or send him an email. And look, yeah, you can call me partial. He's a friend of mine. He's a fellow football coach. But above all else, he's one of the best people you will ever meet. He's an awesome, awesome dude. I can't say it enough. Don't just say it because I know him. He's a friend and a business partner. I say it because I mean it. Go out, reach out to him if you need help, and you'll see what I'm talking about. He's a real deal. All right, Stone, yesterday we had an opportunity to attend the Mega Clinic at Boston College. I've been calling it the first annual Mega Clinic. They've had these camps in recent years, but this type of Mega Clinic, which Mega Clinics are pretty prominent nationally, this type of Mega Clinic, this is really the first one they've had there. Very impressed. Over 500 student athletes were there throughout the day. It was a true Mega Clinic. Not what we thought. I will say that when we first got there, it was tough for us. And admittedly, our goal was to get coaches on and players on. Unfortunately, the structure of the camp didn't allow for that. So we did the best we could. We went around, we talked to coaches, we got some intel, we talked to some of the parents, and then we were able to share our thoughts with you yesterday. But overall, I think when I look back on yesterday, the thing that impressed me the most was the organization of the clinic, the amount of kids that were there, and how they were getting them in through the registration line, getting them measured, getting them on the field to test, and then getting them into Alumni Stadium to do drills. It was a pretty impressive operation. Overall, a really good day for Boston College football, and the local prospects. I thought that they got an opportunity to show what they can do in front of a lot of coaches. There were about, I think, 75, 80 programs there. So overall, really good day for football in New England yesterday at Boston College.
Huge. And I think the biggest thing, just to kind of go off of the organization, is you see why they're well, not dominating, but doing really well in recruiting right now for the 26, 27, 28 classes. This staff is on it. Like, recruiting is a 24/7, 365 job now. And let's not forget, they hosted official visits this weekend too.
Yeah.
So they're a lot of time, spent with 26 guys while also going through how many kids were there? 300,
I
yesterday?
think it was more than that.
More, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it was more than
five,
that.
4, 5, whatever it was. Um, this is nonstop now. And look, that goes for everybody and every program, but there's a reason there's that whole, tagline, Bill O'Brien is building a monster. Well, you see the type of talent that was there yesterday, along with the coaches that were there. And this isn't just assistant coaches or scouts. There were a lot of head coaches there yesterday. Guys taking time out of their recruiting to go to a BC camp. And granted, they're competing for some of the same players, but to go spend their time there, just all around, you see why, people are so high on BC when it comes to recruiting, and especially these next few years coming up. So, frankly, I thought the best part of the day, selfishly for us, were the conversations we were able to have with Bill O'Brien and Matt Applebaum, which you mentioned earlier, and just, hearing their excitement, not only for yesterday, but the upcoming season too.
Yeah, and again, going back to the clinic, the other thing to keep in mind is there was a lot of the top talent in the area was there. So I think that that's important too. And it's guys that Boston College has recruited. It's guys that have committed to Boston College, but it's also a lot of guys that have committed to some of the other programs in the area. And I think what it says that this is an opportunity to not only enhance your stock if you haven't committed anywhere, but it's also an opportunity if you've committed, let's say, to Boston College, to show Coach O'Brien and the staff just how committed you are to them and how you're willing to consistently work to impress them and to honor your commitment to the program. And again, it was fascinating to watch the inner workings of the camp. And I think there's things there. There were some parents that expressed some concerns. There were some things there that probably need tweaking, but hey, they'll look back on it. I'm sure they'll talk about it in the next week or two and say, hey, what could we have done differently? What could we have done better? And I think next year it'll probably be bigger and even better. Of course, it was good. It was also good to see Coach O'Brien, as always been very good with us. He's the man. It was great to see Bears Nigerian as well. Great to see him there. And Joe Mazzulla, Celtics coach, was there as well.
That was a cool interaction to see. They talked for a while.
Yeah. O'Brien and Mazzulla talked for a while. We heard where Coach O'Brien parks his car. It sounds like they talked a lot about coaching and ideas. I'm not going to share what they talked about. We could hear what they were talking about, but it was, to your point, it was cool to see them interact.
Yeah. And then with Matt Applebaum too, which you brought up earlier, calling me his agent yesterday to his face. I didn't see that coming, but
I like to put you on the spot as much as possible.
Yeah. But I love how excited he is for the offensive line flying under the radar. Yeah. And they should be. Admittedly, they're unproven, but man, the experience and talent there, and I'm not sure if you can hear my neighbors in the background, but there's a reason they've been this good. And he's a big part of that reason. Like I said to him yesterday, the reason I've talked him up so much is because players are talking about. Ozzie Trapillo gets drafted in the second round of the Bears, and he credits Applebaum for most of his success. So, yeah, I'm going to keep giving the guy all the credit in the world if they continue to pump out the O linemen or the caliber of O linemen that they have. So, I'm excited for how excited he is about that group.
Yeah, and when you look at what they have coming back, Jude Bowery, Kevin Klein, um, Logan Taylor, I mean, Dwayne Alec, that's a good group, man.
Yeah, like they're not. We talk about continuity, and as a unit, they might not have all played together, but they've all been here for a while now.
Oh, yeah.
Like people are talking like about them, like they've never seen a football field before. So, and again, I'm usually high on them anyways, but to hear his thought process, just sort of how they're approaching the season, fans should be very confident in that group.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. They 100% should be. It was also great to see some of the other coaches in the area. It was great to see Coach Arasimiak. Great to see Coach Stevens, Pat Murphy from down at Brown, Willie Edwards from down at Brown. Great to see Coach Janetti from Merrimack. It's also great to see Coach Beveridge from Westboro High School. It's great to see our good friend Aaron Salkin from the Patriots. Panos Vulgaris, my fellow Greek from Phillips Exeter Academy. We started talking about Greek restaurants, and I thought Stone's head was going to combust.
No, actually,
Stone eats his potatoes and steak, so he has no idea about real food.
I did have chicken cutlets and potatoes tonight, but
oh, wow, look at you venturing out of your comfort zone.
No, it's my ideal comfort zone. But I did want to tell you guys yesterday, there used to be a phenomenal place in Waltham called Demos. I don't know if you had ever been there.
I have never been there, but I had heard good things. Our good buddy John Pappas is a big fan of Demos.
Yeah, no, I used to love it there.
And he's not even a full Greek; he's a half Greek. We love him anyway. See, he's half Greek, half Italian, which in theory is the perfect human. If you're half Greek, half Italian, but
well, I'm Irish and Italian, so I guess part of me is messed up.
Wow.
But
we want to keep people watching the show, so I'll refrain from an a-hole comment.
Fair. But to your point, just the networking. Look, New England football is what it is, right? We're never going to be Georgia. We're never going to be Texas. The community is so tight-knit, though. Like, again, for that amount of people to be there yesterday from the area, and I know they're all, like I said, they're all recruiting the same guys, but that community, it's fantastic, and I am very happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, like I said, it was just great to run into a lot of people. I mean, coaches from all three levels. You know, I got a chance to catch up with my good buddy Dale Olmstead, who I've known forever, coached with him years ago.
Besides you, he was the first coach I ever interviewed.
Yep, former coach at Millis High School and Nichols College, and now he's with our good buddy Jay Savetti over at Tufts. I mean, it's just great to see people. I mean, again, like I said, I hope that the kids got the opportunity, particularly the kids that are still looking to get recruited or are being recruited, to talk to the coaches that recruited them, because that was the one thing that I think was hard to figure out. But overall, it's a smashing success. And any quirks that are there, I mean, one thing we know about Coach O'Brien and this staff, they're not going to leave any stone unturned. They're going to make sure that it works the way it should. So got plenty more in terms of camp coverage. Of course, you got the Best of New England in a couple weeks out in Springfield. We won't be at that, but we're hoping to cover it. We also have the M2 Quarterback Academy camp this weekend at Bryan College on Saturday and Sunday. Hopefully the weather cooperates. It's supposed to rain all weekend, so we'll see. I don't understand how it's going to be 85 and 87 on Wednesday and Thursday. It's going to be gorgeous and awesome, and it's about time it's summer, and then it's going to go back to April over the weekend. It's just I can't stand it. The weather around here is like Stone's personality. It runs hot and cold.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah, I'm not. No. But in any event, like I said, it was great to see. And to your point, and I want to kind of come back to what you said a couple minutes ago about we'll never be Georgia or Florida or Texas. Well, we're not going to be as big in terms of the number of kids playing or the number of programs or even the level of importance of the game that it may not be as important up here because it's more seasonal than it is to them. But the football community in New England is strong as hell. It is strong as hell. To your point, it's a tight-knit community. And there are a lot of people that love the game up here, support it and do everything they can to make the game better. And certainly that was the case yesterday with what Boston College put on and what Coach O'Brien and his staff
Yeah,
did.
and just to
Real
your
quick, our good buddy Sam Knox checking in. Our good buddy Sam Knox from WPRI down in Providence. Sam, great to hear from you, my man. Can't wait for Saturdays at Alumni. It's awesome. Neither
no,
can Stone. Stone lives there in the fall.
Knox, I promise I will come to the tailgate this year.
There you go. So there you have it, Sam. Stone promised you he's coming to the tailgate. So if you want your friends to vacate the premises and get out of there before the game starts, just invite Stone over. He'll clear the place out pretty quick.
Correct.
All right, Stone. Now we're going to end the Bash Kevin Stone segment here now. Real quick before we do go, I do want to ask you. I was going to ask you about this when we were talking about the Patriots. And by the way, Sam, great hearing from you, buddy. Thanks for checking in, man. You're the best. Yes, I knew that. I knew you had season tickets. So that is awesome. We're looking forward to seeing our good friend Sam Knox at those Boston College Eagles games. And by the way, there's a great home slate this year
Awesome.
with Clemson and Notre Dame coming to town. But again, always great to hear from Sam. He's the man. Awesome. Real quick, I didn't ask you about this when we were talking about the Patriots. Just wanted to get your thoughts on Saturday. You were at a pretty cool event in Waltham where you got a chance to get a quick one-on-one with Coach Vrabel. Talk about that.
So I texted you immediately about this, and it was a Special Olympics event in Waltham.
Usually I avoid your text, but I did look at this one.
But the fact that Mike Vrabel was there was stunning to me. And I don't know if you feel the same way. We haven't really actually talked about it since, but
the fact that you were there was stunning to him.
So that's true. I won't get into what he said, but that is those type of events, especially on a weekend, to me at least, and I think you think the same way. That's a rookie type of event, right? Like you send a player or two there, get a rookie's feet wet in community service. Maybe a veteran player goes who isn't doing OTAs or something.
To that point, not to cut you off, we have our Founders Day parade this Saturday in Foxborough.
Yep.
Usually, and again, I hope the weather cooperates because it's a great day. Usually, you'll have you'll have a couple of Patriots rookies, a couple of second or third year guys that'll ride the fire truck. Yeah. And they'll go around the circle in the center of town, and I'll record the video like an effing doofus and post it on X. But to your point, that's who typically, and we're not trying to diminish the importance of these events because they're vitally important, but that's who typically goes to these events.
Yeah, no, of course not. But for a head coach to spend 2 hours going around from station to station, helping out the kids, signing, I must have counted 50 autographs, taking pictures with everybody that was there. It spoke volumes. And he's been preaching a lot about, making good decisions and doing it together. What better way to lead than lead from the front, especially off the field. And he talked to me afterwards, again, didn't have to give me his time. He could have just, got up and left. But I just asked him, why he felt like he needed to be out there doing it when it easily could have been a player or, somebody else. He said, look, I like to do it. I like to see how those kids interact as teammates and stuff like that. So to me, it just struck me as awesome that he was there. And again, truly leading from the front, both on and off the field. So, and to your point, it's not to diminish a rookie or whoever goes to these events. Like, it's a huge part of the community. But for a head coach to do it, I thought that was significant.
Yeah. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think it speaks volumes to who Mike Vrabel is. And I think it speaks volumes for the tone he's setting, that he's changing the culture here, and that it's going to be, one of the things we kept hearing last season was the inclusive culture that was being developed and the collaborative culture. But you didn't get the sense that necessarily spilled out into the community.
Yeah,
I think you get more of a sense that that's the case now with Vrabel.
100%. And everybody's on board. And to his point, and to his credit yesterday, when he was answering my question, he said, we're really trying to make sure we send guys to things that they're passionate about. It's not just a sign-up sheet type of thing, which a lot of teams might treat it that way. So I thought that was important too.
Yeah. All right. New England's had enough of us. So any final thoughts here before we wrap up?
Well, they're going to get a lot more of us next week. It's 3 straight days of mandatory minicamp. Next week's a big week. I know it's only May, but like we talked about earlier, Everybody's there, or it needs to
It's
be there.
June, Stone.
Like Jesus, June, whatever.
What the hell is wrong with you?
But it's huge. It's everybody needs to be there. It's the first time we'll see the full team as one. So next week's a big week, and then as you mentioned, we'll be at all sorts of camps coming up too.
Yeah. No rest for the weary. And then we'll have about a 3-week stretch where we're trying to catch our breath, and then training camp will open up. So it is what it is. All right. Well, that'll do it for this week's episode of the New England Football Show. For Kevin Stone, our good buddy Sam Knox for checking in. Appreciate it as always. I'm John Sarianides. Till next time, be safe, get out there, do as much as you can when it comes to football, and we'll talk to you next week.